Yeah, thank you for the brief introduction. I'm one of the founders of Voltfang, and Voltfang is actually doing second life storage in general. And when I was preparing for the presentation, I was thinking, okay, maybe I start actually a little bit earlier on why we actually need storage systems, what should be the role of the storage system, and in general, when you look at the energy transition, especially in Germany, what should be the role of batteries on the energy transition in Germany? Because that is kind of the purpose why we actually founded Voltfang. Because first of all, why we're doing all of that is that we want to save the planet. I think that's a good motivation for everybody who's working with us together and working in that industry. And we actually see that from the university right now. I'm coming from the RWTH Aachen, and back in the days, a lot of people wanted to go to mechanical engineering, going to the auto industry, and going to that direction. And this actually really, really much changed. A lot of the people now want to go to energy.
Sorry, Roman, to interrupt. I think there might be some issues with the microphone, as I just heard from the chat. Could it be possible to be closer to the microphone, maybe?
Sure, I can.
Thanks a lot, and sorry for the interruption.
No problem. When it's bad, just say so. I will try to focus a little bit more onto the microphone.
Okay.
So you understand me good?
I think now it's better. If you're closer, I guess that's better. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. And yeah, in general, how we can save that planet. And a lot of people are now going to the energy transition, and that's the reason why we are actually getting a lot of people who want to work with us together. And coming back to the role of Germany in the energy transition and into the whole cosmos of CO2 reduction, when we look at this map, we see Germany has around 1.8% of CO2 emissions on the whole world. And I don't think that's actually that much. So when we get rid of all the CO2 emissions in Germany, we're down at 2% of the world. So that's not really moving the needle. So what is our role now? I think it's not reducing the CO2. It's actually that we reduce part or hopefully full of it, but do it in an economic feasible way. So that other countries are then looking at us and are saying, okay, Germany did the energy transition in a very good way and in an economic affordable way. So they will copy us. And after maybe China, USA, or India are copying Germany, then it makes sense for Germany to do so. So in general, I think our idea of energy transition and what is the part, for instance, for Voltfang, is that we need to invent new things and we need to do it on an economic feasible way. So all over we can get the energy transition straight, and other companies are copying this. And we actually did this already. We did this a few years ago. 20 years ago, we actually got the IEA subsidy. That means that we in Germany kind of pushed solar systems into the market. Every solar system, what is installed in Germany, got a subsidy and got into the market. And back to the days, it was the year of 2000, there were actually almost non-PV systems in the world. And when we came up with a subsidy, it kind of pushed the PV systems into the market. And what we saw there is that actually the whole price of PV modules were kind of linked to the EEG subsidy. So when Germany's subsidies are going down, the whole prices of the PV panels in the world went down. And that should be our role, actually, that we are pushing technologies in there because we have know-how here, and then it gets ready for the world, and then it's evaluating, and we see that in the PV systems. We kind of did some mistakes afterwards, and we kind of lowered the EEG subsidies in the 2010s, and then we lost a lot of production capacities of PV systems actually to other countries. So our PV industry and production industry of PV panels is now not really good, but that's a part on the later stage. In general, we pushed the CO2 emissions down, and we did a good job for the environment at all. And I think that should be the role in general of Germany. And when we look at the energy transition in Germany, we have kind of one sentence which describes it very, very well. And that's anything that can be electrified will be electrified. Because when we're looking at the energy of Germany, we are actually not just having the electricity. We are also having, on the one hand, the heat. So we have to get rid of the heat and have to get rid of the CO2 emissions of the heat. And we are doing this over heat pumps. So we said, okay, we electrify the heat pumps more or less, and then we reduce the CO2 in the heating. Then we have the transport. And when we look at the transport, we said, okay, electromobility will be a big part, and most of the cars should be electrified. So all, we're now going to electrify all these sectors together. And that's actually already a big challenge. And that's already a hard challenge to do so. And now the second step is then that we are getting all the electricity actually even to renewable energy. So we have two big challenges to go from the one hand to electrify everything. And that's actually pretty hard for all the grid connection, for everything what we're having in Germany right now. And when we look at this one, it's just not sufficient enough, because when we look at all the electrical grids in Germany, yeah. Leonardo, you had a question? All right, Olga, when you have a question, I don't see the chat here. Actually, I can check out the chat. I have now the chat open. So,
I think it should be fine. Maybe it was just the microphone as it was on.
All right. When you have something, just write it in the chat. I have the chat now open, so I can read everything what is in there. So yeah, when we now electrify. Pardon?
Okay, Leonardo, I'm not sure if you're aware of that your microphone is on. Maybe if you have a question, feel free to ask. If not, I maybe just mute you. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So when we're actually looking, when we're actually looking at the grid connection, we see that it's getting a lot of new energy in there, because we're getting the heat pumps in there, we're getting the electromobility in there, and it's just not efficient. And what we can do now is actually that we renew all of these grid connections, and that costs a lot of money on the one hand. On the other hand, it just takes a lot of time. When we look at for instance, at the North-South link, that's the biggest energy grid connection in whole Germany. It took forever, and it's still on the way. And some bad political decisions in the last time, for instance, in Bavaria, are aiming to make it even more expensive and to make it even more later on from the construction. So unfortunately, this one will take a lot of time. And I don't think we shouldn't do that, but it just takes time and money. So we have to think about alternatives and to see how we can support the grid connection and the grid expansion into the future. And in my case, as battery manufacturer, I think it's a mixture between getting grid more and more, getting the grid more and more sufficient. So building new lines and getting new lines in there, and that's taking time. But on the other hand, at the same time, we have to build up more capacity of storing the energy. And that means we need storage systems, and we need storage systems all over Germany and all over Europe in general, because that's one of the easiest way to say, okay, we kind of can support the grid and can get rid of all the money which has to go into the grid deployment. And when we look at different storage systems, we will have a bunch of different technologies who will take part for them. So we will have, for instance, capacitors. Capacitors can store the energy for a very short time. We will have cavern storage systems. That means we are pushing air into caverns, store them, for instance, for 1 year, half a year, from the summertime to the winter time. And then afterwards, we can use energy from the summer. But one of the most important things is actually the battery storage system, because a battery storage system now is very low on the cost end, and at the same time, we can store the energy for around half a day or 1 day. That's like the most sufficient and the most economic feasible way to store the energy for 1 day. And especially when we're looking at solar systems, we have to we have to store over daytime the energy and have to use it overnight. So we need to store it for 12 hours, 24 hours, and therefore the battery technology will be one of the leading technologies to enable the energy transition in general. And on the other side, we can say, all right, when we when we are not sufficient with the grid, we can decentralize the energy and flexibilize the grid. That's, I think, one of the most important things that we have to do in the near future. That we're saying, okay, we are not dependent on the grid that much anymore. We can do that with different things. We can say, all right, we, for instance, have a normal home or a normal business, and we're saying we decentralize it more and more and over and over again. That means we, for instance, putting a solar system on there, we are putting charging systems on there, and we're putting a battery systems on there as well. So getting a decentralized grid means that this house or this industrial building doesn't need that much energy from the grid anymore, because at the long term, they can use their own energy and being more independent and decentralized. And then one of the another very important things is that when we have all the assets and all the hardware installed in the system, we need to make it smart. Because one of the most important things how we can get rid of losing energy is making everything very smart. That means getting an energy management system into the building, which knows, all right, we can now use the energy. For instance, we have daytime PV systems is producing energy, and now we can use it for the cars. And if you don't use it for the cars, you can maybe get it into a industrial process which needs a lot of energy, heating up something. So we need to flexibilize the energy, and that's a major difference to the thinking what we had a few years ago. Because back to the days 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we were looking for very stable energy sources. We had stable energy sources like a coal plant, and we need to use the energy as stable as possible. So actually, it was very good when you had the same energy consumption over a day, over a month, over a year. So that was, for the old grids, it was very, very good. But now we have to rethink that one, and we have to use the energy while we generate energy. And that's something totally different, and a totally different thing than what we have to use in the future. So that's in general how batteries can support the energy transition. But because I'm from Voltfang, I want to bring you guys a little bit closer to the Voltfang approach, which is very, very much related to the second life approach. Because we are actually having enough electric vehicles in the country in the near future. Right now, we're not having that many, but we are getting more and more into the future. Nobody knows what we're actually doing with all the batteries, what we're using. So what we are doing is actually we're taking the batteries out of the cars, then we dismantle the whole battery pack. We are using the battery modules. We're then testing every single one of these modules, and then we integrate them into our storage system. And then we can use the batteries not for just 1 year, for 2 years. We can actually use these batteries for 10 years or more. So we have a guarantee of 10 years of all of these batteries, because we are just using the good ones, and therefore we can extend the lifetime. Of course, we cannot use every battery. We need at least around 80%, 70% of 80% of rest capacity to use it, because otherwise we cannot run them for 10 more years. But when they have the rest capacity, then we can use them. We can integrate them into our storage system and then install them at a customer. And there are some differences between the normal storage batteries and the batteries from the cars, because batteries from the cars are actually produced and engineered for way higher circumstances. Because when you're driving the car, you have minus 10 degrees, you have plus 30 degrees, whatever, and the battery has to take it. You have, for instance, shaking atmosphere. you have a very, very high charging and discharging of the batteries. When, for instance, you have fast charging of your battery, you're getting a lot of energy into that battery very quick, and a lot of energy out there very quick. And that's just not the case when you're doing storage systems. Because when you're doing storage systems, you are just having very, very decent temperature. You are having not that fast charging, discharging. So what I'm saying is that we have well over-engineered batteries, and then we are using them for very, very easy circumstances. And that's kind of the part of the reason why the quality of these batteries is way higher. We can use them for storage system and then having 10 years of more battery lifetime because they are very much over-engineered. And what we're doing at Voltfang also is that we're saying, okay, we need to know how the battery is behaving. So we have actually monitoring in the battery. So we are actually seeing every 10 seconds, we are seeing every cell data on our website and on our servers. And then we see, do we have a degradation in one of the cells? Do we have to change anything there? So that's something what we have to work a lot on because we need to know when we have to change a battery. And this one is doing by the monitoring we developed at RWTHR. So the monitoring is very important part of the whole system. So then we're taking the batteries and then we're putting them into industries and into households. So therefore, we need to connect the battery system. And that's one of the most important things, that we have to get the most out of the battery. And we are doing that with the energy management system. For instance, we can connect a charging station with it. We can connect a PV installation. We can connect all our different sources that we can get the most out of the battery, because the energy management system is one of the most important things for every battery which is out there into the field. And what is even more important is that we're saying, okay, we can, an add-on, we can say we integrate dynamic tariff, because when we looking at dynamic tariffs, that means we're having higher prices for the energy when there's not enough energy. When there's too much energy, prices are going low or sometimes going even negative. And therefore, we have to use and consume the battery, the energy while it's cheap, and while it's expensive, and do it while it's cheap. So we have to integrate these dynamic tariffs into our batteries, and that's what we're actually doing. We are using we're charging the battery during low cost prices, and then we're using the energy during high prices. And this one is actually part of getting the grid more stable, stabilizing the grid, because when the energy is very cheap, a lot of energy is into the market. That means, for instance, we have the high day, we have sun shining at its best, and therefore we're using battery. And this one shows a little bit that it's not just about battery, because battery, everybody can build a battery. It's about how to use the battery and how to get actually the most out of the battery. And therefore, for instance, I just bought a few reference projects with me where we are saying, okay, we had exactly that setup. For instance, the McDonald's McDonald's store, they had, I think, 10 charging stations in front. They had a PV system. They had everything together. Then we had an energy management system and had like the perfect timing of multi-use and different energy levels. Also, we had an Aldi store as well, where it was exactly the same, where we said, okay, we want to get into peak shaving. That means a store, for instance, has very high peaks in the daytime, and we can cut these peaks storage system, and we have self-consumption optimization. And a little bit on the industrial side, we had also a big storage system in there where we said, okay, self-consumption optimization combining with peak shaving, and therefore we are stabilizing grid on the other. So what I'm trying to say is that you can use a battery for very different use cases. It's like a Swiss knife. You can just have a battery, but what makes it smart, what makes it more complicated is actually how to use the battery, because there are a lot of different areas how you can use them. And we do have a lot of batteries coming in the next year, especially from all the EV batteries, and we still do not have a perfect solution for using them. So while some companies are actually recycling the batteries or burning the batteries, first of all, always reuse it, get the most of the battery, and then afterwards you can always recycle that. So a few sentences maybe to Voltfang itself. We are the biggest second life manufacturer in Europe right now. We have more than 80 employees in and around Germany, and we have a production site in Aachen, and we have also an office in Aachen. So we are now into that system pretty much. So coming back to the planet and coming back to the CO2, I think it's a part of everybody to see the time what we're having right now, not as a bartering situation where you have to put a lot of money in there. There are a lot of opportunities which are going out. You can build up a lot of new business modules, and you can build up a lot of new products all around the energy transition, because Germany is one of the first ones who's doing an energy transition. Other countries will follow, and you can use the products not just in Germany, but in the future you can use it in almost all countries which are following this path. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Roman. This I think was a good overview of motivation and what you're doing in the project. I just need to change some setting here. Okay, now it works. Yes, I'm not sure. Do we have some questions in the audience? Okay, so I do have some, so I take the chance. Maybe then the rest can think about some more. So I saw the capacity you showed was up to, if I got it right, 1.3 megawatt hours. Do you have any limit there, or what scale is what you're aiming for in the industrial sector?
What we're seeing with the market right now is that the batteries are actually getting bigger and bigger. We started with the average size of around 150, 200 kilowatt hours. Now the average size is already 600, 700 kilowatt hours. And for our system in general, from a technical point of view, we do not have a limit. So we can go to 100 megawatt hours and stuff like this. So from the technical side, there is actually no limit.
Okay, so there's like a upscaling as far as the demand needs it. Okay, that's good to know. Another thing would be how long is the delivery time? Because as you said, there must be the second life, the batteries for the second life available. Do you see any issue in the moment, or are there already enough on the market?
Yeah, what we are actually often using right now are overproduction batteries. That means that are batteries which car manufacturer wanted to use for EV batteries, but they're not selling, unfortunately, right now, because right now the EV is not selling as good as we hoped so. So they're not selling that many cars. So they have these overproduction batteries which were made for the cars and then coming to us. So a lot of batteries what we are using right now are actually coming from this overproduction, because the market on second life batteries is actually kind of limited, and there are not that too many batteries out there right now.
Okay, I see. But anyway, the system as it is then would just work with a second life battery as well, like you just
exactly. Yes. So we're actually expecting that in the next 3-4 years, a lot of more batteries are coming in there, because at first EV batteries are actually having their end of the first life, but right now there are not that many models to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So back to the audience before I keep on asking a lot of things. Is there anyone who has a question?
Nick, I see your question. Or I can send the first person yourself. So that's all.
Okay. So I would just maybe ask one more, but now I'm not sure if you have then some. You said, I mean, as you're working now, technically not really with a second life.
So, but
anyway, I guess your management program your battery management program would then detect like if there would be a loss or anything, because they, I guess, would be a little bit less, how to say, I mean, they're older, maybe they are more.
You see different voltage drops and stuff like this.
Okay.
So very short, very little differentiations between the cell voltage and stuff. So then you see, okay, maybe one cell or one node is not making it that well anymore. And yeah, it's kind of, we analyze it with every storage every day, because that's the data later on, which is very interesting, because when you know how to handle a battery and how to behave and how to act with the battery, you have an advantage against competitors in the future.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Jeffrey. Please feel free to ask.
Sorry, I misput my hand up. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, don't worry, thanks. But anyway, there was another question asked, and it was how many years, I mean, range it's mentioned there, will EV battery be used in a EV before it becomes a SL battery? So I guess in the electrical vehicle before it becomes a second life battery. And then it's mentioned if there's a difference country-wise.
Yeah, actually, that's not totally clear right now. When we're looking at, for instance, normal combustion cars are going from Europe to Western Europe and then to Africa. That's roundabout the route what combustion cars are doing. And we're not quite sure if electric vehicle will take the same cycle kind of a thing, or we will have a change of batteries beforehand. What we are having contracts with is actually that you're saying, okay, we have a contracted car over for a fleet of a company, and they say, okay, after 5 years, we're changing the battery, because then it has around 80% of rest capacity. And then you can use the battery for a second life. You're getting a new battery with new technology in there, and then we can use the second life batteries for that one. But it's totally not clear how it will be in the future in general, because yeah, they're not that many right now.
Okay, yeah,
so I would say 5 to 10 years to say.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't sound too long, to be honest, to use it just 5 years, but I mean now I don't.
Yeah, it depends. You can run it way longer if you like to, but then it makes it more unprofitable for us to reuse it. It's a matter of in which use case we want to use which battery. Yeah.
Yes, and how safe I feel as a driver, not knowing about my battery condition the best, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay, then there was a follow-up question, and it was what EU or other governmental policy are there to support the development and use of second life batteries? So do you have any beneficial governmental beneficial for this, or?
Normally, there is a rule you always reuse a product in the European Union before recycling it. So to take this rule seriously, you would always have to have a second life before the recycling by law. But actually, there is no penalty behind it. So nobody is following that law that strict. So this one could be a law, and they use it right, which really would push the second life forward. In general, there's no law which is supporting it in the big term. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe in the future. I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Another question is, what is the biggest challenging regarding using secondary life batteries from technical perspective?
Yeah. In general, when we're looking at BMS and we're looking at the technical specs of them, of the batteries, it's pretty much similar. There's not that big of a difference between second life batteries and first life batteries. Maybe when you're coming to the cell chemistry, it's dividing right now a little bit between stationary storage systems. They are more going to lithium iron phosphate, so LFP batteries, and cars are more going to NMC. So this differentiation is leading to a little bit technical differentiation between these two technologies. So then it could get a little bit problematic into the future. Right now we are not at the space where we have to change between NMC to LFP, and therefore we have to readjust, for instance, the BMS or whatever. So this could lead to a problem, but right now there's just, I would say, the life indication, because of course when you have a second life battery, you have to know how long the battery will last, but that's not really a or it's half past the technical issue. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Geoffrey, is it a question now?
Now that's a real hand.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're very demanding with regards to the quality of the batteries, the second life batteries that you're using, which makes sense because then you have a controlled product and you know that you're going to be able to deliver at, let's say, at good efficiency and also that your installations are going to be safe. But I'm thinking that there could also be another argument to say, okay, even if I use less efficient batteries, it's better to have some second use of the battery, even though they're not necessarily as well performing, than no use at all, or even recycling, which is energy demanding and so on. So is there any consideration of making some less high quality second battery parts just for bulk storage, or is it not something that is being considered?
Yeah, I get your point. Right now, it's not really considered because when you look at the customer is always we are always compared to first life batteries, and when you say okay, maybe you have here lower product somehow, the customer wouldn't probably buy it. So what we're saying is saying okay, we have the same terms of warranty, 10 years of warranty for all of our products, even though maybe they're used beforehand. You have the same benefits and you have ecological benefit from it because we're not using the resources. So in general, because we're always competing against first life, it's kind of hard. So we're not considering it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And I have a second question. I know that there's a so we're mostly talking about the support that we can give to the grid in terms of bulk energy and also probably ancillary services. But one benefit of storage is just the insurance that they can provide in case there is a rare event that is happening, and then you know that you have your plant just to supply a very short amount of time or a very high peak demand. Is that something that you're looking into in terms of usage? And I don't think there's a very clear framework for this kind of use of battery storage for as kind of an insurance to the network. But is that something that you're looking into and that you're trying to push forward in terms of policies and so on?
Right now, we are when you're looking at the customer side, we have different use cases like self-consumption optimization. So we're not looking at use cases like this at all because we're really much focused on the customer side. When we are looking at grid-scale storage systems, then, like you said, we have, for instance, AFRR, FTR as a use case. Also, we are running the wholesale market, so buying the energy, but especially on a different use case where we're saying, okay, from an event of a blackout or whatever, we are not having such a use case in terms right now. No, but maybe because I don't know how the revenue for something like this is. I never heard that there's a revenue case behind it, but I'm not quite sure about it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm not sure if you have any more questions now. The chat, I think everything is answered so far. So maybe I just ask one, like, I'm very sorry if I forgot for how long your business is running. Could be that I missed the number, sorry. But are you in a state now where you say you making now the first projects to like, to demonstrate that everything is working fine, or do you already work with resellers and are in the market spread out?
Yeah, we are on the market for 4 years. We have 200 systems running on the field right now. So okay. We're actually in the mass production here in Aachen, and so we are in the scale up the business right now. So yeah, we have the first phase behind us. So we don't have to prove that it's running. We have to prove that we can scale it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you. So every project is welcome, I guess.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, perfect. If there are no questions left, I would say we can close the session. I might, yeah, first, thanks a lot, Roman, again.